Cops, how do react when you see someone doing something illegal when you are off duty? Actual cop here. It entirely depends on the crime and all other factors. Example, if I'm with my family and 5 armed men rob the bank I'm in, I will be a great witness and stay out of it. Example 2, if I'm with a couple of coworkers on a day off and we see a woman getting slapped around by her boyfriend, of course we are going to stop it and detain him until patrol gets there. Example 3, active shooter at the mall, innocents being killed. I'm probably going to try and be the hero for some stupid reason. As long as my family isn't there, I'll engage. If you are asking about people committing minor traffic offenses, smoking pot, littering, etc., I'm not at work and me getting involved will probably have a bad outcome anyway. Someone I work with was dating a cop. He joined us one night when a group of us went out for dinner and drinks. The weather was nice, so we were sitting outside. As we are chatting, I smelled weed wafting over from a nearby table. My GF and I exchanged knowing smiles, but didn't say anything, not wanting to acknowledge our familiarity with the wicked weed. My work friend is not a smoker and seemed completely unaware. Her BF, however, clearly noticed. He also seemed clearly annoyed. As he explained it later, he doesn't care if people smoke weed. However, someone smoking in public puts him in an awkward situation, since anyone there who smells the weed and knows he a cop sees him not enforcing the law. He really just wanted to ignore it, but with each new puff floating across our table, he was getting more visibly upset. Eventually, the smoker stopped or left, but it was kind of a twisted thrill to watch the whole thing play out. Had they stayed, I think he would have done something. He was clearly pissed off that they'd put him in that situation. He just wanted to hang out and drink a beer, not solve some ethical or professional dilemma. UK cop. A few months ago a drunk driver crashed into my wife as she was parking outside our house. Once I'd made sure they were both okay, he tried to leave the scene. I didn't let him. In other situations it depends on the crime. Someone smoking weed or other minor things I'd just ignore. If someone was clearly drink driving, I'd follow at a distance and ring it in to get someone to stop it. If something serious was happening like a serious assault, I'd have to intervene. I'd just try to ring it in first to ensure backup was coming. I like to think if needed, I'd get involved cop or not. But without the training and having the expanded comfort zone that you get from being in daily situations, I can't say that for sure. 2 stories. First, not me as the Leo. Back when I delivered pizza I had pulled up to these apartments in town. Plywood City we called it. It was income-based housing, and it tended to attract some of the area's finest citizens. So, anyway, I park my truck and hop out with a bag. 2 parking spaces over the town cruiser is parked, and the officer gets out too. We know each other, so we start psing as I'm walking towards the apartment I'm delivering to, with the officer following me. I get to the door and say, well hey, this is where I'm going, what about you? Same place, he says, and motions a go-ahead movement for me to go first. So, I knock on the door, and from inside I hear someone shushing and someone else yells out, who is it? So I answered back, shop name, S Pizza. She opens the door and looks up at the cop who says, oh, and, town, police, need to speak to your husband. I got no tip. Second story. It's a couple years since that last story. I'm at a bar in a town not too close to me having some wings. I hadn't seen this friend, we'll call him Dan, in a while, and this place was halfway between where we lived, so we met there. I'm having my wings, sitting at the bar, having a good time generally, and my friend reaches for his drink and accidentally bumps his elbow into this guy who suddenly stepped up next to him. Even though it's barely a tap, Dan, being the respectful and polite gent he is, apologizes for it. The guy he bumped went full asshole on him. Oh, fuck off man. You did that shit on purpose, you're lucky I don't bust your teeth in, motherfucker. Dan shrugs it off, and Jude kinda steps away steaming. We finish our wings up, shoot a game of pool, and then decide we are gonna wander town for a bit and BS. So, we step out the back door of the place, and as soon as we get into the parking lot asshole comes out too. Oh, thought you'd get away without payback, motherfucker? You were wrong. Look man, I apologized. It was an accident. I don't know what else you want me to say. Dan kept his cool nicely. I should note Dan is a Marine, and the reason I hadn't seen him in a while is he had just returned from deployment. Anyway, asshole gets this stupid grin and picks up a chunk of concrete from the curb and starts walking towards Dan saying, "Oh, what? Not so tough now, are you, motherfucker?" Dan backs up, hands at chest level, repeating he doesn't want any trouble. I've already got my gun out, but not aimed at asshole yet, and when he kept advancing on Dan I shouted "Hey!" at him. Asshole turns to me and says, "Oh, look, a gun. The fuck, man? You're gonna shoot me? Haha. Good luck, buddy. You'll get charged for using a lethal weapon on an unarmed man. You're not unarmed, jackass. You're wielding a weapon with intent. Like shit. A gun is a weapon. I won't go down for it, because concrete ain't a weapon. I know the laws better than you think you do." At this point I reached back with my left hand, grabbed my wallet, and held it open to him, showing him my badge. "Wanna try this conversation again?" Several of my family and a friend are cops and all but the most religious have had their morality beaten the fuck out of them after years of exposure to us scumlords. Violent or potentially violent crimes can't be stopped off the clock because you lack the equipment to fight, defend, or call for backup. You get reprimanded for pursuing even without incident. That's all I know of the rules. At a guess, if a cop actually ran down a robber off duty, it would be a simultaneous slap on the wrist and pat on the back, same as a non-cop doing the same. Essentially, a cop off duty is a regular person. They just have to conduct themselves in certain manners of behavior, similar to any job. Don't embarrass the company. Don't spread case details. Yada yada. It depends on the circumstances. I've never had to get involved in a situation. I've watched and called things in, but that's it. If there was a situation where someone was getting hurt / robbed / kidnapped, obviously I'd intervene. It can get frustrating at times when I'm off duty and see someone driving like an absolute moron, blowing through red lights, weaving in and out of traffic. I have an overwhelming desire to pull them over and let them know that they're being fucking stupid. Unfortunately, my Honda Accord is not a cop car, so I can't. Going to the bus has become more complicated since I became a cop. Maybe it's just the area I'm in, but there are a lot of douchebag tough guys. I can be a smart ass myself. Last week I held the door open for a girl and this guy charged past her and walked out the door without saying a word to me. I loudly said "You're welcome," at which point he stopped and turned around and tried to start something. Part of you wants to pull out your badge and say "Go ahead and try something, buddy," but I've always got to keep in the back of my mind that anything I do off duty could come back to haunt me once I go back to work. My dad was driving his undercover car one day and this guy comes weaving down the lane doing about 30 over the speed limit. He finally gets right next to my dad, who gets right behind the car that was the next lane over so that this guy can't pass. The guy starts going apeshit. He's flipping out, giving my dad the finger, yada yada, and finally swerves at him. My dad just laughs, flips on the lights and siren. He said as the guy pulled over he could literally see him banging his head into the steering wheel. I went on a field trip with my children to the pumpkin farm a few years back, which included my 2-year-old daughter. It was all mommies and one other guy beside me. I gravitated towards him and we started chatting. We all got on the local public bus to go to the pumpkin farm. The driver of the bus was insane. He drove about 20 miles per hour over the speed limit, ran 2 red lights, and ended up slamming on the brakes to avoid an accident on the second red light, launching my daughter into the back of the seat in front of her. She was alright, but cried hysterically. When we stopped, I had one of the mommies get off with my kids and went up to the driver and started ripping into him. I was ready to fight. I was so pissed. I suddenly hear a calm voice from behind me say "I'll handle this," and turn around to the other dad holding a badge. He then asks the driver for his driver's license. Turns out that other dad was a highway patrolman. The driver was terminated. My dad's friend's sister used to be an FBI agent. She had this one story, although I think it's more a story of idiocy than putting somebody in their place. So there was a bank. One day some guy walked in with a note asking for money. Typical robbery. However, when the teller started reading it, she started laughing. This moron decided to rob a bank that was next to an FBI building. Of course, all the agents did their banking there, and there was always at least 5 or 6 agents in there at any one time. From the way she tells it, as one agent was arresting the guy, there was a train of 10 or so agents walking by showing their badges. My dad wasn't a cop, but this story is McDonald's related, and, fuck it, I just like telling the story. So my dad, who was a rather unassuming guy with average build and stature, takes 10-year-old me through the drive-thru at McDonald's. I'm taking a few seconds too long to decide which milkshake I want, and the guy behind starts beeping his horn repeatedly and making hurry the fuck up gestures from his car. My dad leans out the car and asks the guy if there is a problem. Said meathead jumps out his car in his stereotypical bodybuilder pants and starts marching towards the car shouting and yelling, "I'm shitting myself here." So my dad turns to me and says, "1 minute. Don't leave the car." Gets out, walks towards the approaching aggressive idiot and just plants a clean head, but straight on his nose. Blood everywhere. Then he grabs hold of him and proceeds to throw him through his open car window. Turns out the nose-smashed dude has a friend in the car who made a, probably wise, decision to stay seated. And that was the day I learned my dad really could beat up your dad. I've always had respect for the job of being a cop, although cops themselves can be dicks, saviors, or something in between. I mean, you basically offer to handle all of the fucked up situations that these crazy monkey things create. The worst of the worst. You clean it up. That's your job. I love watching Cops or Bait Car. When you start to look at the element of society getting arrested, you realize that some people are little more than animals that need to be caged. And I'm a liberal. I detest the war on drugs, the beating of protesters, and all of the other things that fellow Redditors hate police for. In my own way, I guess I'm trying to say thank you. I'm happy that our society values order enough to cage the animals that perpetrate crimes like these. Even if I fear the cops dragging me away, I'm mostly a nice guy, but I used to tangle with drugs and parties. Keep up the good work. Random badass story of justice my brother distributed. A man was drinking and beating his girlfriend. My family was on the porch just enjoying the night. We hear the slaps and screams and run out to the scene that is now in the middle of the street. My brother tell Hein to knock it off. This guy starts throwing full tall boys at us. My brother is a baseball and basketball player, so he caught one before it exploded and threw it back at the guy and hit him. We all took off running toward him, and about halfway there he pulls a gun and starts throwing it around. My brother isn't a fighter and has never fought before, but his balls became steel and he ran as fast as he could at the guy and jump kicked him. The guy went flying. The gun flew to God's nowhere. My brother punched the guy out him to sleep like Anderson Silva and took my shoelace and used it to cuff the dude. He got arrested and my brother got handshakes. This is a good cop story. I'm 28, never in my life being pulled over. I drive a little fast, but then again I do live in NJ. I tried making a red light being as if I didn't, it was going to be a rough stop. Cop pulls me over and instead of being a douche I hand him my paperwork, say good morning officer. He asks me do I know why I pulled you over, and I say yes sir, I ran a red light, and informed him it wasn't my intention to, I just didn't want to slam on my brakes. 20 seconds later he returns and says he's not giving me a ticket because of my attitude and honesty, something he hasn't seen in 3 months. A lot of people hate cops, I'm sure there are some bad eggs, but I respect cops 110%. Any man/woman willing to risk like every day for, in my opinion, way too low pay for life risking. All respect given. I'm a police firearms officer in the UK, bit like SWAT in America. Me and a colleague were driving through a reasonably large town that we work in around midday. We were in civvies and a unmarked car. There had been loads of jewelry shop robberies recently, so we were going along checking everyone was okay. We pulled up and entered one of them to chat to some of the people we know. My colleague went out the back to check some CCTV when a rather large gentleman enters the shop with a long coat on. He hands the assistant a note that read, I have a gun. Don't piss me off. I will shoot you. Give me all your jewels. That is how he spelled it. The assistant shrieked, which put matey boy off. Next thing he knew, he was face down on the floor with a Glock muzzle in the back of his neck. Never before have I seen a grown man cry as much as he did. Justice fuckface. I gotta say, it's exactly things like these that make me want to go into law enforcement. I'm currently studying in college, but I plan one day to get into the FBI. At least that's my goal. I'll probably do police work to get ready for it. Putting dumb shits in jail who think they can get away with this kind of thing just because there is no marked car present. Those are the best stories to hear. Keep up the good work in law enforcement, since the only thing we hear about these days are the bad or rotten cop stories. This is nice to see. Before college, I moved around a lot due to my dad being an FBI agent. At this particular time, my family and I lived in Las Vegas, and let's just say my dad was a very high-level exec at the office there. This is a man in his 50s who is far beyond his field work days, but always insists on carrying his secondary. One day he's just getting some gas at a gas station when he sees a very excited woman come out of the convenience store. She had apparently just hit the jackpot at the gas station slots. Yes, they are everywhere in Las Vegas. The woman enters the bathroom around the side of the building, and after a little, while my dad hears screaming and struggling, he rushes around to see what's happening and catches a man running out of the women's bathroom. My dad immediately draws his weapon from his ankle holster, yells "Stop, FBI," gets the guy on the ground with his hands on his head, then cuffs and arrests him. The man was indeed robbing the woman of her winnings and got hauled off by the police after my dad waited out some very intimidating community confrontation without any backup. You cops definitely know how this is. For those of you who don't get the same weight of this that I do, this type of situation is incredibly uncommon for FBI agents, especially for senior execs. Anyway, what bad luck for the mugger to have an FBI agent arrest him immediately after committing the crime. If karma is real, it certainly was a bitch to this guy. Serves him right.